Hey everyone, it's Nightharo here, and today I'm going to go over all of the insane changes. Insane in a good way, I think. Insane changes, though, coming with update 46. So we've got multi-classing, but we've got a handful of other changes as well. We've got new mythics, new sets, we've got changes to housing, all that kind of stuff. We're going to go through here and talk about tanks. We're going to talk about healers. We're going to talk about DPS. We're going to talk about housing, and we're also going to talk about PvP. Okay, so there's a handful of things that we're going to go through. Feel free to skip through if you'd like to get to a different point in the video. Okay, so let's just start off here with multi-classing. Multi-classing is absolutely crazy. This is the most insane new feature that has come to ESO in the entire 11 years of its existence. Period. Full stop. That's it. It's absolutely crazy. So how does it work? Well, basically, if you want to multi-class, so let's say I'm on a Necro and I want to multi-class into some other skill line, I need to have a character with that skill line maxed out, level 50. Okay? If you have that, that means that you can spec into to multi-class into that skill tree, whatever it happens to be, and then you have to level it up. Leveling it up is going to take a lot longer. It will take 2 skill points instead of 1, so there's going to be a lot of skill point grinding going on when the release comes. I will also note that there is a new green CP that will help you. It'll increase your XP gained on those skill lines because they'll also level up more slowly than your normal average run-of-the-mill skill line. You know, all the other details, I think that really tells you most of what you need to know. The main thing is you got to hang on to one of your base skill or class skill lines from whatever class you're on. You can only use skill like class specific things for your base class. So if that's a set, if that is a scribing ability, that is a class mastery, basically stuff how you would kind of expect it to work. So I don't really need to go too much in detail, but that's how it's going to work. But generally speaking, I think the multi-classing is fairly straightforward as far as how it works. There is a quest giver in the middle of Riften, and you can go there and talk to him. It's very quick, very short, and you can try it out on PTS, and you should be good to go there. Other changes we got, guys, scribing is now going to be a lot less useful. We've been grinding out scribing for the past year, and I really think with these changes to being able to spec in other classes, scribing is really going to lose a lot of its utility. Unfortunately, I think that there's going to be a whole bunch of rebalancing that is going to need to go on, both for classes, for scribing, for all kinds of stuff. I will say, ZOS has made a note. They know that balancing is going to be the next big thing. I don't think they're going to be able to do it fast enough. To be totally honest with you, I think we're going to be really wishing that things would go faster. But hey, they know that's the problem. They're going to be working on it. So I guess we'll get it when we get it. Okay, now let's move on and talk about tanks specifically. So crazy news. First off, we got a new set. This is actually a great beginner set. There's almost none, almost no beginner tanking sets. There are sets that people think are beginner tanking sets, like Leeching Plate and stuff like that. But Leeching Plate, like in many of the other sets that seem to be good, aren't really good. If you're in a easy fight, it basically means you don't have to press any buttons, which, okay, sure, that's nice, but you're not learning anything. And then when you get into hard-hitting fights, it's not doing hardly anything for you. So there's not many, but now we have a new set. It's called Full Belly Barricade. And whenever you have a food buff active, which you should always have, it increases your block mitigation and reduces the cost. Okay, so you can perma block a lot easier now. A great new tanking set. It's Overland. Absolutely love this. Huge changes to the DK. You can no longer permanently magma shell. So just like they did with the corrosive shell before, now with magma shell, you cannot generate ultimate while the ability is active. This means you can't chain together magma shells. This is kind of a niche thing, but I think it is pretty important to a lot of people out there that you can't generate now ultimate, and you also can't cancel the ability early. So a big deal there. It's going to change up the way some tanks at least work. Armor passives. Now, this is also absolutely crazy. And you know what's funny is I recorded a video that I haven't released yet to go over armor and how to get to armor cap. It has been the case for so long that you have not needed to be on a Nord, but everybody still thinks that you do. Well, ZOS said, hold my beer. And what they've done is they've, I think, doubled the DK or almost doubled the DK's armor passives from about 1,600 to about 3,000. So crazy. They've also upped the wardens from 990 to like 1240, so that's a fairly significant increase per skill slotted, so that could go up to, you know, fairly high. Typically, though, it's probably going to be about that 1200 mark. And then Arcanist, they've also buffed the Arcanist armor to go from, you know, their passive in the skill line was giving about 2000, and now it's north of 3000. Okay, so and you can spec into any of these skill lines with multi-classing. So now armor, you know, being on a Nord is, I think, really a thing of the past. You're really going to want to be on that red guard, which I've been recommending for a long time, but you really want to be on that red guard, or at least for a while now. And I think absolutely, because there's a lot of way to get that armor and kind of damage mitigation there. Other things here, this is another crazy thing with a Templar. Templars have gotten several buffs that have made them a really great, like it feels like that Paladin playstyle, which is awesome. But one thing that's really cool is Lightweaver has been changed the passive. So now, whenever you do a channeled ability, it considers you to be blocking for 2 seconds while doing that channeled ability. And they made a point to say this does apply to heavy attacks. And you're considered to be blocking, and there is no cost. And this can happen up to once every 15 seconds. What that means is that you can heavy attack for free and not have to worry about getting one-shotted from a heavy attack, because you're considered to be blocking and there's zero cost to it, up to once every 15 seconds. Guys, if you kind of know what you're doing, that's going to be enough sustain to keep you from dying, okay? You're still going to have to be intentional about your play style. And the other cool thing about this is that anybody can spec into this now with multi-classing. So absolutely amazing. Other things, guys, as far as the multi-classing for tanks, there are skill lines from every single class in the game that are useful and that are valuable. Yes, there might be one thing that's a little bit more optimal. There might be some things that a lot of people being kind of forced to go into for buffs and what have you for their groups, but there are a ton of options. I would like to see a few things change, to be totally honest with you, but I think they're going to be so busy with DPS, I don't know if we'll get that in the near term. Particularly the Necro. Necro's tanking skills are really spread across all 3 skill lines, and you guys know I love my Necro, but everything else, it's amazing. If you want to see some footage, I was tanking the new trial. Obviously, spoilers there. And check out my live stream, guys. I tank, I heal, I DPS, and you can see all of that. And I've walked through all this stuff in more detail there. But go check it out. But absolutely, so I was on a Necro. It felt like I was hacking the game. I was on a Necro, but I was running a Warden heal and a Sorcerer's shield, just for fun, just playing around with stuff. It's absolutely amazing, and it's going to be great for tanks, making our lives easier. All right, now let's move on and talk about healers. So healers, also great news for healers, just like for tanks. There are, I would say, really 4 class skill lines that are really great on a healer. So Warden, obviously we have our green balance. I think just about everybody has a reason to spec in a green balance if you want to. Budding Seeds is really great. The other thing is, with most of the good, healing skill lines, you're going to get extra recoveries in most of them. You're going to get plus healing in most of them, and you're also going to get some great skills. So just a ton of reasons why you might want to do that. I think the main ones that pop out to me, Arcanist, being able to use, curative rune forms is absolutely amazing. As I said, green balance on the Warden. I think Living Death on the Necro, some great heals there. A lot of people really, I think, underestimate how good Necro healing actually is. And then probably the last one, while you could spec in a handful of other things like, DK and what have you for the buffs, which you might be asked to do, I think Nightblade is kind of the last one there. And I say that, guys, like there are reasons for all of these. Nightblades, you're not getting a whole lot, so you don't really need to, but you are getting some ulti gen. If you want to go into a sorcerer, you could get Major Maim. There's a ton of things to do, and there's not going to be, you're going to have, just like tanks, you're going to have some flexibility. Even if you're running in an optimal group, you're probably going to have, unless you're just at the extreme high end, you're going to have some options, and I think that's great for healers. It's going to be crazy out there, but I think it's awesome, and I think there's a lot of great abilities that are really going to help people and are going to help healers just more generally. All right, now let's move on and talk about DPS. Guys, DPS, oh my God, where do we even start? Okay, so DPS is honestly kind of a mess. So the good news is there's been buffs almost across the board to every single class, which is absolutely amazing. The cons, and everybody kind of knew this was coming, is that there are absolutely some meta setups, some very just setups that are much better than every other class. And I will note, for some unknown reason, ZOS thought that the Arcanist damaging beam wasn't good enough, so they buffed it by like 6 or 8, I think it's 8%. Ridiculous, guys. If you want to know what damage numbers we're seeing, we have seen 170k parses, okay? And there's also, I will also note that like Templars right now are absolutely broke on PTS. Solar Barrage is completely broke. It just keeps stacking that 5% increased damage buff. Daedric here, I'll pop it up. He did like 180 something K parse, and he's running a Necro, Templar, and Beam build, okay? So Arcanist build. There are other setups that are doing something slightly different. Nightblade also looks really good with the assassination skill line. Again, Arcanist, the Beam, the whole skill line is going to be really good. Necro also got a really good skill line with the plus 15% dot damage plus extra to your Necro specific abilities. We'll have to see. There are pet Zorks that are doing like 1-bar pet Zorks that I've seen like 130k-ish parse, maybe I think a little bit higher, like 135. There are all kinds of crazy parses out there right now. And I'll pop up like we're seeing this in content. So here's Daedric completely gapping everybody else because I don't think everybody else had time to get all their characters set up because we were running it live the first day and people were getting home from work and probably didn't have time to set up their characters and everything. And so, yeah, it's just absolutely wild. There's going to be need to be a ton of balancing. I could spend, honestly, like an hour talking about this, and I probably will on stream in the near future. But some things here so there's some skill lines in the DPS line that just are completely useless and not really good on certain classes. There's also the situation, I think a lot of us want to make like a zoo build where we just have a bunch of pets. You can still do that, but they nerfed some of the passives in a very unsatisfactory way, and I think it nerfed the fun, and that's kind of unfortunate because there's not like a really good synergistic way you can make an all zoo. You can make an all zoo build. It'll be fine, but it doesn't really feel like you're theory crafting and you're really like figuring out something that works well together. So that's kind of unfortunate. The Necro Gravelord skill line, which is the one that you probably want to grab if you're going to go DPS, probably getting nerfed. It's pretty powerful. It's kind of outsized right now. The Nightblade Assassination skill line is quite strong. And if it doesn't get nerfed, which I don't necessarily think it needs to, but if it doesn't get nerfed, then that's probably going to be one of the go-to skill lines as well. And then, of course, the Arcanist Beam. I mean, it's just kind of broken. It just does ridiculous amounts of damage. On some of the really high parses, I was seeing it do like 90k. Just the Beam was doing like 90k. So it's kind of ridiculous right now. There's a handful of setups that we can see where people are doing this kind of stuff. Guys, I think it's going to take months and months for ZOS. I think stuff's going to go live, and it's going to be a little bit unfortunate. All people's fears, I honestly think in some ways are going to be realized. I will say it is still really fun. And one of the things is those, we'll call them tier 2 builds, right? So not the meta, but like builds that are like pretty close, but maybe keeping with a theme, or they're really fun, or they're easier to play, or whatever, are still going to be very viable, and they're going to do a lot more damage, okay? And at some point, like, unless you're score pushing, right, how much more damage do you need? I mean, more is always better. It makes things easier, but I do think that you're going to be able to play some kind of off-meta builds that are, 10%, 20% worse than the absolute meta builds, and they're still going to do more than enough damage, and you're going to be able to do some really fun things. Again, I think there's going to be a lot of tweaking, though. I think a lot of people's fears, there's going to need to be a lot of tweaking done if this is going to get to a good place where we're all very happy with it. Hey, guys, this is a good point to note. Hey, if you like what you see, if you like the channel, yes, subscribe, but share the video. Pass this on to somebody else if they need to know, if they're trying to look at what to do. And, come by the Discord. We'd love to have you there. Also, consider becoming a channel member. We'd love to have you here. It starts for as little as $1 a month, and it helps you make great videos just like this. Anyways, much more I could say about DPS, but, it's going to change, and things are going to be changing over the next, weeks. Stay tuned. I'll be doing stuff live, but I'm not going to, go super in depth on stuff that's going to change in like 4 days anyways, okay? So there's a lot going on here. Just know that it's interesting. Some of it's really good. Some of it's what we feared, and we'll just have to see how it shakes out. ZOS is going to have to put a lot of work here. Okay, now let's talk about PvP. Guys, PvP, I've heard mixed reports, and I think that a lot of people's fears, again, are probably going to be realized. So one of the biggest gaps in an MMO is the skill gap, okay? And then also the knowledge gap is kind of included in that skill gap, or maybe you add it separate, but it's big. And that is going to be even worse. They're going to be people with more optimal builds that have, everything they need on their build that are going to just wreck the newer people even more in Battlegrounds. It's just going to happen, guys. I'm sorry. I know this is everybody's fear. At the highest level, it's going to be, I don't think it's as broken as a lot of people feel like it is. Double bow procs, obviously a problem. So we'll just have to see. I can't really say more than that. I think it is going to be a lot of what people fear. I think they're going to continue to do stuff with Cyrodiil to, make the vengeance system with the various vengeance skills better, more interesting ways of interacting and what have you. I do have high hopes for that. Okay. But I do also think that this multi-classing is going to make some BGs battlegrounds just absolutely broken. And, there's ways around all of this stuff, but I think it's going to increase the skill gap, which kind of is the problem to begin with. So we'll just have to see how it all shakes out, though. For those who don't know, PvP is one of the things that I do kind of the least of, so just keep that in mind. If you hear somebody else who disagrees, I would defer to an expert, but that's what I'm hearing from a lot of my friends who play a lot of PvP. Housing. Okay, so one of the cool things with housing, guys, is obviously there's furnishings and whatever, and if you're super in housing, hopefully you already know all that. But one of the cool things is that there's coming a furnishing vault. Now it is tied to ESO Plus. I think ZOS said, "Hey, you housing people, we're not monetizing you enough." So they gave you a reason to have ESO Plus. The furnishing vault here, what it basically allows you to do is it allows you to put up to, like, new collectibles. It allows you to put up to 500 items, like unique furniture items, stacked into one space up to 1,000, in the furnishing vault, which is basically just a menu. Okay. And you can get a physical item that you can put in your house that is the vault, but basically it's in your typical housing menu, and you can stack up to 1,000 items. I'm sorry, I said 500. You can stack up to 1,000 items of the same type, and it'll take up one spot. Okay, so that means if you got a bunch of duplicates, you can stack up to 500 of them in the spot. And I think for a lot of housing people, you guys have been looking for ways of storing stuff. I don't think it's what everything that housing, folks want. I think that there's a lot still to be lacking, like more space in your house so you can put more items out and stuff like that. But it is something you guys let me know that are hardcore housing folks. I am very much not. Let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. And then the last thing here is the heroes return. So ZOS is trying to make it easier and better for players to return. There's now in-game prompts and mechanics that will kind of lead you and guide you, first refreshing you on some of the combat mechanics if you're a little rusty, but also offering you rewards for kind of going through the motions and kind of relearning the game if you've been gone for a long time, and hopefully helping you with where to start. Now, they've been light on details with this, and they're like, you guys can go test it out. I streamed for like 10 hours yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to check it out, just putting this video out now, but it does seem, just on cursory look, like it does seem to be a good idea, and the feature seems to be okay. And again, it offers you rewards, so hopefully it incentivizes people and helps get people back into the game. All right, guys, I think that's it. If there's something really important you think I missed, drop it in the comments down below. We can chat about it there. There's a lot of stuff that I'm just not going into that is important, okay? There's increased block mitigation for tanks. I think healers are in an amazing spot. And man, the DPS stuff is just all over the place. So plenty we could talk about. Drop it down in the comments below. And hey, if you want to see more videos like this, you want to keep in the loop, guys, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. You want to see more content like this, hit the bell icon too and you get notified. I stream, guys, 6 days a week, so you will see me streaming and talking about all these new features. Come on by, we'd love to have you. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.